on the OShow, we want you to be informed and to help you remember how you felt and what they did so that when you cast your ballot, you're making the right choice for yourself, your family, and the future of our great city. Joining me on the OShow to discuss the very things that we need to remember. And they've got a pretty cool way of helping us do that. It's called the fail list. And it's at 44, but I think maybe on the last show we added another one. We're probably at 45 and maybe more by the end of this conversation. I want to invite back to the OShow Mary Lou Tanner. She is an engaged citizen in Ward 4, an urban planning expert, and so much more. Mary Lou, welcome back to the OShow. It's so great to have you.
It's great to be here, Laura.
Now, I know that we could pick your brain all day long about every kind of zoning and urban boundary issue and everything else, but I do always appreciate that you have a very compassionate and pragmatic view of things that you bring to this program that our viewers appreciate so much. And that's a rare thing I find in our local politics these days, at least in our local leadership, and I'm using air quotes for the audio podcast, is that you look at it both pragmatically with your experience, but also with some wisdom and compassion. And I really value that. And Ryan Moran, of course, you're a busy guy, Ryan. You don't just do the fail list and your watch company, which is Lock and
King. Yeah.
Lock and
King, the street. Yeah.
That's right. I love it. And they're beautiful watches. But you don't just do Lock and King and have the co-motion working space, but you also chronicle on social media, sort of what has happened to different structures and buildings in the city. So where do you find the time to do all of that and to be one of the co-founders of iElect?
Really just maximize your time. What was it? Tim Ferriss, the 4-hour work week of just, make the most productive use of your time possible.
Well, it sounds like you've got a busy family life as well, Ryan. So my hands off to you. Okay. So in the last show, we did what we always do, which is go down some pretty interesting rabbit holes when we start talking about the list, because there are themes. There are themes around leadership, around communication, around not listening to citizens, around the selective perception bias of council. They hear what they want to hear and not much more. A great example, and I don't know if this is on your updated list, Ryan, but when Lloyd Ferguson questioned the veracity of the city's own survey because it was done in an electronic manner, 20,000, close enough, residents responded to a city survey on an issue of urban boundary expansion. 90% of them said, no, don't want it. And yet we had a councillor say that it was questionable how the survey functioned because he was electronic, but he had heard from some people at the golf course that they're okay with it. And therefore, that seems to reign supreme. So Ryan, how do you not lose your mind as a busy individual working so hard on this city and its betterment when you hear a councillor who has one of 16 votes on such a critical issue for climate change in our future negate 18,000 voices in favor of, the ones that he's happened to have in his direct sphere?
Yeah, I mean, to stay sane, you just have to try and remember, I guess that's one vote. But I think it comes back to what we were talking about in the last episode with Mary Lou saying that I think they just don't care. And I think he just doesn't care. 18,000 people, that's about 50%, if not more, than we've seen turn out in actual full-on municipal elections. And it's more than he's ever seen in terms of voting for him, way more. And yeah, you're just gonna, and it also smacks of a certain style of political discourse or discussion that's kind of risen up in recent years of just, if you don't like the answer, you find fault with the process and then you attack the process instead, rather than just accept the results. Your team did this. And if you didn't like the way it was being organized to start, I think you were in the leadership role to have taken responsibility from the start. So you don't like the results, deal with it. But yeah.
I know, Mary Lou, on the urban sprawl issue, there have been some people at council who have said, no, we don't want to expand the urban boundary, who seem to understand the risk that's involved. I don't want to see the urban boundary vote come down to another item on Ryan's fail list. This is just so critical. what do you think Hamiltonians can do? I know last week Linda Lukasik on the OShow, or a few weeks ago, made the comment that we have to keep fighting, like fight, fight, fight. That's what's got to happen. But how do you keep up that level of engagement when we have a video, I think it was, of one of the members of the team in the city sort of talking about it as though it might be already a fait accompli? I mean, did you guys see that video online? What did you take away from that, Mary Lou?
Well, the city council did the right thing in sending the survey out. Absolutely, they did the right thing. And it behooves them to listen to it. The conversation about whether or not to expand the urban boundary is about how and where the city of Hamilton should grow. And it should be a really hard conversation, because it is changes forever on landscapes, whether it is growing up within the existing urban boundary or expanding the urban boundary. But it goes to the polarity that I talked about in the last episode. It seems like we're always faced with these binary choices. It's A or it's B. And where is the council leadership to say, okay, we've got a really compelling response to our city survey. We've got a lot of technical work that the staff have done. We've got the industry telling us another thing. Where does the solution lie?
Yeah.
And that comes from leadership in bringing those voices together, whether it's the development industry, the staff, the environmental community, and really start working through the nuts and bolts of the issue. It absolutely did not help that Minister Clark sent his op-ed to the Spectator. That is just, it's like pouring gasoline on a lit fire, it seems. But really, this is now a leadership moment for council. It's a leadership opportunity for those who are committed to healthy, respectful dialogue and process to work to find solutions. And that is not happening. And we all lose. We all lose when it's the politics of binary choices.
So Ryan, why don't they do it? Why don't they look for those options C, D, and E?
Oh, I mean, not to summarize all of them, but I mean, I think for the most part, it's just their own lack of experience or qualifications or insight into how to even find those solutions or what sort of solutions exist. I mean, we were talking last episode about the patio situation in the pandemic and trying to assist businesses. Expanding that space is not some complicated solution. And when it's being done in the cities surrounding you and 30 minutes away, like, are you actually even getting out of the city ever to see what other places are doing? Instead, it's just, I think they abdicate decision making and they abdicate insight in certain cases to just hear an answer from someone else, and then they go with that.
Ryan, to your point, not just an appreciation for best practice or an intellectual curiosity, but there's a lack of experience in terms of widening their own frame so they can understand the issues in front of them. So I don't know, Mary Lou, is that laziness? Is that cynicism? Are they too busy to do the extra effort that all of us as professionals would do if we were faced with a quandary?
I think there's a few things going on. I think there is just a number of councillors that have been reelected and reelected and reelected. So they're not excited about the possibilities of the future, and it's really committed to the same old, same old.
I'm not laughing at you. The thought of council, I can't remember the last time I heard a councillor excited about a vision for the future. I can't even remember any of them articulating one.
Well, there's two that have. Councillor Maureen Wilson and Councillor Narinder Nan, and I would say to a lesser extent,
I meant the old school. I meant the old guy.
And isn't that it? And to a lesser extent, Councillor John Paul Danko. But we talk about the city of Hamilton being the best place to raise a child and age successfully and other things, and yet the decisions that council is making are really not aligned to that. If it was the best place to raise a child and age successfully, they would clear the sidewalk snow. If that was their motto and their decisions needed to align to that, we would have a top to bottom review of park space and where people can actually get out of their houses safely arising from the pandemic. They've done the right thing. in free transit for kids under 12. Good job on that. That aligns to their vision and mission. But what we are seeing is just, I don't know, some of them, it just feels like they're phoning it in, right?
Oh,
Like,
absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's like, I mean, you come into a job and you're either motivated by idealism or consequence. And it's either you want to do the job because you want to do the job and you have purpose and a vision behind it, or you do the job because you need the pay, you need the money, or you have a lifestyle you want to maintain. They're certainly not doing it by idealism or purpose, and they're barely doing it by consequence. And I think that's the really depressing fact, is that they know too that with a certain amount of incumbency that there is a safety to that. So the idea of consequence is gone, and they're barely motivated by it. And then you look at something, I think, like the sidewalk clearing, where it becomes these A and B options, and that one is just mind-boggling in the sense of just, what is the B? Like, what? Why would you not even consider this? Like, I've not seen anyone speak against the idea of clearing sidewalks for those who might have challenges.
So seniors, how are they supposed to get around? How's it the best place to grow old successfully? People who have mobility challenges, how do you possibly get down the sidewalk over those berms? When it's not even plowed at the corners, it's brutal. Yeah. Children, mothers with strollers, those things are not meant to go over icy snow-packed sidewalks and bumps from the snow clearing of the roads. They're not. So it fails, to Mary Lou's point, on every part of the city vision that we don't clear our sidewalks. I have a car. I don't know about you guys. We probably have cars. This probably is not the end of the world for us, but it certainly is a very isolating winter in a pandemic when you can't even get your council to clear your sidewalks.
Well, it certainly is. And it goes to the voice of citizens. And if you're going to ask people for their opinion, at least respect it. And many of the councillors on sidewalk snow clearing went, well, it was only 2,000 citizens. And now we're starting to hear the same verbiage on the citizen survey on the urban boundary issue. If you're going to ask, listen. And if you're not prepared to listen, or you're just going to, chip away at the credibility of your own survey, then don't do it. Just don't do it. Like, let's knock the sham off. And on the sidewalk snow clearing issue, I had a bad fall 4 years ago. I have, permanent meniscus tear in one knee because of it. And I was very fortunate that I didn't have a worse injury, but it just happened in the blink of an eye. And I was in 6 months of physio from it. And I'm, a reasonably healthy adult, but imagine if that had been somebody with a walker. Imagine if it had been a mom with a stroller, and then they've got knee damage and they're trying to get home with their kids in a stroller. Like this is what we are dealing with. And is it going to take a public shaming? It may very well take that in order to get counselors to listen. And it takes listening to their lawyers as well. Like, look at Sewergate, Coots cover-up, Red Hill. The first vote on grants for Malium. They go into closed session with their lawyers. They come out and vote the party line, right? And look what has happened. The erosion of public trust that has gone on because of things like Coots cover-up. Sewergate was bad enough. So Sewergate is the spill, but then the Coots cover-up is council voting to cover up what had actually gone on until a whistleblower provided the information to the Hamilton Spectator. Mm-hmm. And we wouldn't have known about it absent that whistleblower. So then they try and find out who the whistleblower is and sue them. And then try and divert the conversation of, well, you can't canoe in Coots. No, that is not the issue. Let's start with trust. Let's start with apologizing for the cover-up. And let's really deal with the fact that if you're only going to listen to your lawyers, you are going to lose the trust of citizens very, very, very quickly. I have never seen in the 30 plus years I've lived in this city a lower level of trust in council than we have right now.
Ryan, we did not hire lawyers to do the job. We hired counselors. We hired citizens who presumably would represent us, who presumably gave a shit about what our issues were. And we expected that they would use our tax dollars to hire lawyers for the legal opinion, but that the legal opinion would not be the opinion, that the opinion would come from them. And yet we see them time and time again, to Mary Lou's point, hide behind, cower behind these legal opinions as justification. And it took IELECT putting out the video of Cameron Crutch's research to get the mayor this fall to go on radio and admit that they knew about Sewergate and they engaged in the Coots cover-up. He said, admittedly, we took legal advice and they decided not to share it with the rest of us. But I don't know, did you hear an apology in that radio broadcast, Ryan?
No, not at all. And I think one of the most shocking things too is that whenever they talk about, oh, well, we made the decision at the recommendation of our lawyers to avoid litigation, all it takes is a simple question like, well, wait a minute. And who would that litigation have come from? Oh, right, the citizens that you are elected to represent and protect and serve. So basically, the legal recommendation was about covering your ass, not about doing what's best for the city. And that's why you kept it quiet. And that's right down part of the admission.
You said people do a job because of idealism and purpose or consequence. And I think that that just distills it for me so beautifully, right? Who around that council horseshoe right now, Hamilton, are there because of a sense of purpose and a sense of, they don't have to have grand vision and high rhetoric, but are they there with a sense of purpose? They don't have to be idealistic to the point of being Pollyannic, but do they have a sense of hope and vision for the future? Or are they there just consequence? They want the paycheck. They want to try to get, whatever kind of salary they can get or whatever kind of benefits or retirement plan or whatever. This is the best gig they can get and they know it and they just stay there and we suffer as a result. I think that is an important litmus test as we look around the people around that council. And I have to say, Ryan and Mary Lou, I always love talking to both of you because we could go on a million different tangents as we go through these lists of issues. But I just want to end this second parter on this updated list of fails today with both of you to answer this question for me. If you had to extrapolate out of this list and out of the conversations we've been able to have here on the OShow, what are sort of the main themes or the main issues that we need remedied in order to have a better Hamilton? Like, there's so many problems, but if you had to kind of zero in and say, if these couple of things could be changed by having better leaders around the table or better performances from these leaders, what would they be? I'll start with you, Mary Lou, because you always seem to me to be someone who has solutions at the ready.
Well, that's a tough one. So I think it starts with a commitment to truly listening to citizens, constituents, and all voices. It continues with, politics is the art of finding solutions in sort of that messy middle piece. And it seems that we are really lacking the leadership that is going to do that. And the third thing I would say is, if the city of Hamilton's mission vision is about the best place to raise a child age and on and on and on, then all of your decisions need to align to that. And I'm confident that if we went through Ryan's list, we would find that every single one on that list failed. And if we flip that around to what have you done that aligns to that, the list would be woefully short. And that is really, really, really what we're missing. If there is a compelling vision for this city's future that addresses housing, addresses climate, addresses the pandemic, and addresses income inequality, then that's what we need to see from the council we're going to elect in a year. And we need people who have a vision and a voice and are prepared to do that hard work. It's heavy lifting, but our city will fail without it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Ryan?
I think I always think about the old saying of shit rolls downhill. There's a pretty famous culture problem at City Hall as well too. And I think that's been well documented and well reported on. for quite a long time. But shit rolls downhill. And so if you're going to look at impact and about changes across the city, whether it's in communities, whether it's for services for small businesses, whether it's for affordable housing, where are the problems starting from? And I think they're starting at the top. And I think that's where it then begins to filter down. It's a lack of vision, it's a lack of purpose, it's a lack of insight, qualifications, and just growth, and as you said, curiosity. So if you have these people at the top who just have this mindset of good enough, that it's good enough, or this is fine, or this is no, you should never have that mindset to begin with. If you're a leader, you should always strive to be better than what you were the day before. And if you're not, then get out of the role. I think everyone who's running for a political position should always ask themselves, I mean, this is maybe being overly idealistic about what people would ask themselves in going for a political role, but you should ask yourself, am I the best person for this job? And if you can honestly say yes, then why are you going for it? And I would love to hear these people's answers to that.
And when you talk about the top and shit rolling down hills, I know they always say, oh, the mayor is one of 16 votes, but that's not how it goes. The mayor sets the tone at council, the mayor sets the public narrative. And I think that our mayor has failed on so many fronts. If I went through that list, how many times did he make the situation better or worse through his communication and through his leadership or lack thereof? And on the OShow recently, Catherine McKenna, the former Minister of the Environment and Climate Change and Infrastructure and Communities, told us, as an exclusive, she wasn't going to run for mayor, although she was flattered by everyone floating her name around, or the people who were, but she recommended Keenan Loomis. And I don't know if Keenan Loomis is the best choice for mayor, but I do know that he would be one of the people who would come to the job, as you said earlier, Ryan, with an actual sense of purpose and idealism as opposed to just consequence. And that's what we need. We need it in the mayor's chair, we need a fresh mayor, and we need it around the council chamber. I'd like to ask that question, and maybe I will on this program, to everyone who's running. Are you running with a sense of purpose and idealism? And if so, what is that vision? Or are you there because the consequences suit you, or you're afraid of the consequences if you don't keep that gig? In other words, why are you there? Are you the best person for the job and the best person for our city's future? Listen, both of you always get me thinking, and hopefully, as I said off the top of this episode, people will remember not just what happened and the impact on their lives and the future of the city, but how it made them feel. I'm sick of paying this psychological tax to this council. It's painful. I pay enough in property taxes. Okay. We need better leadership. I wish we had leaders like you two around the table, of course. Maybe we can force one of you to get in there at least. But in any event, thank you so much, Ryan Moran and Mary Lou Tanner, for doing the OShow. Stay safe, and thank you for being the voices people trust on the issues they care about in the city. And we all care so much. Thanks for doing the show.